Yep. Okay. Go!
Will you hand me my scream box?
Now go. Freak.
I had you both come in person because last time you were on Zoom, you're both in the same home. But Christopher, can you please state your name for the record?
Christopher Martin, Your Honor.
All right, and sir, can you please state your name for the record?
Tice Martin, Your Honor.
Please both raise your right hands. Do you solemnly swear from the testimony you're about to give in this matter be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Now, if I recall correctly, I think it was last week, right?
Correct.
Okay. You were both on Zoom, and Tice, you were continuing to swear.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Now, I can appreciate that being on Zoom, you feel a bit more at ease or comfortable or what have you, but it's still court, and that's not acceptable. So I had you both in person. Now, from what I recall, I believe, I don't know if it was 1 or 2 years ago or maybe 3 years ago, I don't recall. But and I'm just going to call you each by your first names, not to be disrespectful, but for ease of the record, that would just be easier.
Yes, ma'am.
That Christopher, you had filed a complaint to evict your son Tice, correct?
Correct. It was about 2 years ago, Your Honor.
Okay. And there was, after I think 1 or 2 hearings, there was some conversation that the court had with both of you. And then it appears as though that moved forward fairly well until a short time ago. Would that be accurate?
Yes.
No, yes, Your Honor.
Okay, I need you to speak up just because I'm recording here on my computer here, and so I need you to speak up so we can catch it.
No problem. Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, and so it appears as though things went south when you were no longer working. Would that be correct, Tice?
Yes, Your Honor. When I had lost my employment, I had ended up going through a mental phase where I went to the mental hospital for 2 weeks.
Okay.
And after I had gotten back from that, I was not asked to pay rent. I didn't pay rent for the whole entire duration after I got back from the mental hospital.
Okay, so when were you at the hospital, sir?
I'd have to go back through medical records.
Well, just what month?
I can't remember. It was probably, I think it was in February or something.
Would that be about right, Christopher?
I believe so, Your Honor. I believe he lost his job at Amazon at the January of 23. Probably within a month, it had kind of broke down, and the Wyandotte police came and they talked to him, and he checked himself into Wyandotte third floor rehab.
Okay. So then, when he came home, Christopher, was there any discussion regarding expectations, whether looking for another job or, don't worry about paying rent right now, just keep looking for a job, focus on your treatment, whatever it may be? Was there ever a discussion after he came home?
There was a discussion because he had gone to longer care. He had gone to, I can't remember the name of the facility in Detroit. They did some diagnosis, it's none of my business, and he came home with several medication bottles and he was down.
What do you mean none of your business?
Well, I mean,
you're his father. Why you don't?
I never really got the clear story from Tice, like exactly what they diagnosed him with. Like I know there were several pill bottles on his stuff downstairs, but he was down.
Hold on, Tice. Who do you have as your emergency contact on your information?
Would be at that time it might have been my sister. When I did come home though, I do want to clarify, I did make them aware of my diagnoses and the prescriptions I was supposed to take, and I was even given rides by Christina, his wife, to go refill my prescriptions as well as my sister.
Okay, so
or I was just confused, Your Honor. I mean, like I'm not sure.
Sir, please let me finish. I'm not really sure why you're not aware of what your son's diagnosis is.
Correct.
I said I'm not aware why you don't know that. You're his father. He never
really explained. I heard bipolar, I heard medicine, some medicine was for schizophrenia.
Whoever's phone is not off, please turn your phone off. So I can see where Tice would have probably thought, okay, I don't have to pay rent right now, but the focus is getting a job and, you know, continuing with my treatment. Tice, where have you been looking for work?
So, Your Honor, after I lost my employment at Amazon, I was door dashing for 2 weeks straight. I ended up running my vehicle into the ground, doing in the process. And after I had my mental health stay at Stonecrest as a facility in Detroit, I immediately was applying to jobs locally. So I got a job right at Circle K. Unfortunately, the manager.
I'm sorry, when did you get a job at Circle K?
It would have been maybe not even a month after my stay, so March.
Okay, so maybe like March or so?
March, yeah.
Okay. And then how long did you work there?
I worked there for a few months. The manager, I would say it was 3 to 4 months that I worked there at most. I worked very briefly over that summer, into the summer, and then that's when I had gotten out of the job. With the management, when I got there though, what I wanted to say, it was this guy manager, and it was a woman manager when I first went. And when I came for my first day of that job, she had been transferred to another store. And the only reason I bring it up is because that Circle K is now closed. He ran it so poorly that a lot of people were leaving. And that is why I ended up leaving the job myself, because it wasn't the right fit for me after my interview. So that's just what happened.
Okay. So you knew it wasn't the right fit. So where were you applying for jobs in the interim?
So I was also donating at CSL Plasma over that summer, and I was applying there and other places locally. And as a donor at CSL, I, for lack of a better word, I harassed them about my application and wanted to get in there and educate myself through their positions.
Okay. So as of right now, are you working or no?
I work at CSL in the med field as a reception technician and a processing technician.
Okay, and how long have you been working there?
Since late April.
Since late April?
Yes.
So you were working 2 jobs at one point?
No. For talking about Circle K, that was 2023.
Oh, okay. Okay, so now you, okay.
I'm sorry for that.
That's okay. And so, your hospital stay was in 2023?
I believe so.
Okay. Okay. Okay, now, since April of 2024, has there been any discussions about rent between the two of you? What's that, sir? Hold on, Tice, what was that?
The only discussion, Your Honor, about rent.
No, what was it you said to your dad?
If you wanted to go ahead.
Oh, okay.
The only discussions I recall, like, we've had discussions because since he's gotten his job, he lives in the basement. The cat lives in the basement. The cat is puked on his bed or pillow. He's come up complaining about the cat box and going off and feeding the cat. And I'm like, you haven't even paid any rent. I think it's pretty bold that you're coming up here and complaining about the cat. Like, that's the least you could do. Like, you haven't paid it, like, and for almost 2 years, you haven't paid any rent.
Well, hold on, sir. If your son has an issue with the cat puking on his bed, right, or whatever the status of the cat is, right, that's its own separate issue. He has, I mean, anybody would have the right to talk about that. It doesn't matter if he's paid rent or not paid rent. I mean, anybody would have the right to talk about that. So, has there been, that doesn't answer my question, or maybe it does. Has there been any discussion between the two of you regarding rent since Tice has not been working since April?
I have brought up rent several times that
Okay, good.
that we had made an agreement of $150 a month.
When you say several times, tell me in what context are you bringing it up? I'm sorry?
I can clarify, Your Honor, whenever you want.
Okay,
So at the start of the year, when I was looking for, trying to get into CSL Plasma, not to bring up my parents' personal business, but that had affected not only the situation at the house. So when I had gotten that job at CSL and when I was donating, meeting money, paying my phone bill through that, because I wasn't required to pay rent at the time, my only bill at the time was just my phone bill. I ended up getting that job at CSL, and the personal life that at the house, him speaking on behalf of the cat, the relationship stuff that I don't want to get into, and other issues with the house and its needs being met, that caused me to really speak up on behalf of just the house in general's needs. And that is when rent was brought up and discussions about me speaking out of turn and not really having a leg to stand on, saying I don't pay rent, this, that, and the other.
Okay, when you're talking about the needs of the house being met, what are you talking about?
So at the start of the year, there was troubles with my younger brother getting out of the house, specifically in the middle of the night. There was a day that when I started.
Okay, but I'm talking about, you're talking about the needs of the house. You're talking about like certain things that have to be cleaned up or?
So why I bring that up is because our front door was not able to lock properly.
Okay.
Same as our back door just doesn't close fully properly.
Okay.
And then also the dryer had been broken at the start of the year.
Okay.
My dad had lost his employment. So we rigged up our old dryer and it does work. It has a screwdriver in the handle. So that affected me getting to work with, I had to go with wet clothes some days because our dryer just doesn't.
No, sir, no. You're gonna go to work with wet clothes because you didn't plan accordingly. You could have washed them earlier and you could have hung them to dry.
That is absolutely valid.
Correct. And what steps did you take to help fix the doors?
I offered.
No, I asked what steps did you take, sir?
The only thing I did was I actually adjusted some of the screws on the front screen door so that it would close properly, but I don't know what the part is called, with the chain doesn't hook up properly and like use the air to swing the door slowly, so it just kind of sways open. But I got it to work and pull closed enough. That's all I did. And then on behalf of, with my little brother getting out, they ended up putting latches on the doors so that they could make sure he's not getting out. But it wasn't until a day where my friend was staying with us and we caught my little brother getting out 6 times or more in that night. And when I went to knock on my dad's door, I was greeted with "come in," which confused me because it was about 9-10 o'clock at night and they were completely ignorant to the fact that their son was getting out in the middle of the night, yet they were awake.
Well, 9 or 10 o'clock at night is in the middle of the night, sir, first of all. But second of all, when you start to question your parents' parenting, that becomes a bit of a problem. Right now, if you want to support that parenting and do that without questioning the parenting, right, I'm sure that'd be much appreciated.
Absolutely.
But when you start questioning the parenting, which I'm sure you're doing because you had some less than positive thoughts, I would presume, based upon whatever the dealings were between the two of you, okay? Now, you filed this action when? September?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay, so what happened that you ended up filing this matter in September?
You asked me what context rent come up. It's come up so many different times, and it's come up in arguments when he said something really inflammatory, and my response was, "You haven't even paid any rent," like complaining about, "When are you ever going to get nacho cheese?" and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, you don't help out with anything and you still don't pay any rent.
Okay.
Or did you feed the cat? Or he's trying to make it sound like I was just not acknowledging the fact that we had made an agreement for rent before he went to the mental place. I'm trying to be a good dad. I'm not trying to pressure you. You just got home from the mental place, but then like a month goes by, you work at a job for a month, you lose that, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 months go by again, you get a job at CSL Plasma, I'm taking you to work, and the first things you get is a 666 and 999 on the sides of your neck. And I brought it up then, and you ain't even giving me any rent. You won't even give me $5 to take you out to Champaign, drop you off at CSL Plasma. It's come up several.
Okay, so when your dad brings up the fact that you're not paying rent, right? So clearly there wasn't discussion about, okay, rent is resuming this day at this time for this amount of money, right? There was not that discussion. Would that be accurate to say?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. But your dad did make reference on a number of occasions, I'm going to presume based upon what the testimony is, regarding the fact that you weren't paying rent. So when your dad would make those statements to you, did you say, "Oh, well, I didn't know I had to pay rent anymore"?
That was stated, Your Honor, several times throughout the past year.
Hold on. Then what was the response when you said I didn't know I had to still pay rent, or I had to pay rent anymore? Was the response, "Yes, you do"?
it was mostly shrugged off and then played back to, we had an agreement back then, so it should play now. And I just wanted to state that most of the times he would bring up rent would be when I was speaking up on behalf of my needs not being met and just generally not being cared for.
Hold on, sir.
So,
Pause for a moment.
Go ahead.
You're 21?
20, turning 21 this October.
Okay, so in a month you're turning, October what?
October 22nd.
Okay, so within a month you're turning 21.
Yes, ma'am.
Your needs being met, as far as what?
So when I come home to their arguing with their personal life and I wasn't getting enough sleep to go to work, also getting my little brother who's 2 or 3, about to turn 4 this year, bawling his eyes out to the arguing and just not enough getting done around the house, like he stated.
Not enough. Okay, let me clarify, sir. Certain foods not being bought at the grocery store.
That was not
your brother crying, them arguing, right? That doesn't have anything to do with your needs not being met. Now, if you feel as though the environment is not conducive to you, then you have every right to relocate.
You're absolutely right.
But what you don't have a right to do is to demand from your father certain types of foods, or telling him that your needs aren't being met, or anything of that nature. Because, sir, at this point, you're responsible for all of those on your own. And when your dad kept bringing up the fact that you weren't paying any rent, at any point, did it occur to you that, oh, perhaps I should start paying rent again? Or did you say, Dad, when would you like me to start paying rent again? Now that I have income, I've been stable with my income for a bit. Did you ever say that?
Your Honor, all I told him.
Did you ever say that?
No, Your Honor. I told him that I was trying to catch back on my debts with my credit bill being high, and from my previous car, the car repairs that I had to use my credit card for, catching up on loan officers from this whole big old law office with that, and just that's pretty much from April to now, that's where I've been at. I'm finally caught up on most of that, so this paycheck was the first one I could actually put aside, and the current vehicle I have now is in the shop. But to answer your question, no, I did not ask you.
But then you're saying your needs aren't being met. Your dad was driving you to work. Your dad was providing you with utilities, water to wash your clothes.
Absolutely, you're right.
Food. And then you go and get tattoos and you don't offer to pay rent. And you're telling this court that you're getting caught up on bills and you're spending money on tattoos. You're gonna tell me that they are for free?
Not at all, Your Honor. The only reason that I didn't feel necessary to pay rent after he had rewrote it up earlier this year when I got the job is because I was coming home to chaos, and that I just prefer to look elsewhere for housing if I'm coming home to.
Sure, you can look elsewhere for housing all you want, but you not paying rent and you coming home to chaos are not, they're mutually exclusive. They're not dependent on one another.
I would have loved to state prior to this meeting that, to my dad, if I'm saying, Your Honor, that I would have paid rent if things are, there's a better agreement. If the house is taken care of to a standard and that I paid for what I.
And what is the standard the house should be taken care of? So,
and the dynamic currently is I'm at work. Christina, his wife, is full-time working, and then he's taking care of the kids, taking them to and from school, and managing the house. So when I got the employment on my job, as well as Christina getting her employment, the fighting was an issue of getting enough sleep. And then, like you said earlier, the cat and throw not being taken care of properly, getting fed and just getting vet appointments, and him throwing up just all over my room because that's where he lives. I'd come home from work and it's just a hindrance to have to wash all my bedding on top of my work laundry and then have a dryer that was broken, so that when my dad asked me to pay rent, I was like, what am I paying rent for? It's
a roof over your head, sir.
You're absolutely right.
Utilities that, water, electricity, food. I mean, $150 a month is nothing.
That
doesn't even cover utilities, sir.
Yes, Your Honor. That was the last.
And so I'll tell you, from a parent perspective, right? From a parent perspective, that sounds pretty entitled. I know that word's thrown around a lot, but that sounds pretty entitled.
I totally understand, Your Honor.
And I will say that while your dad is not perfect, right? There isn't one parent that's perfect. It does appear as though your dad has exercised a lot more patience this go around than the last time before when you knew you were in court a couple years ago. Because it doesn't appear as though he's asking for back rent from the times that you were not working, right?
He did state that today, that I probably owe him over $3,000 in back rent.
Well, that's not happening.
Okay, go ahead.
$3,000 isn't happening. My point is, sir, you knew there was an agreement for you to pay rent. You were paying rent until you were no longer employed. And then you were in the hospital. And then it took you a bit to get a job. And then you were at a job and then it didn't work out very well. And you didn't pay rent during that time. There wasn't any communication regarding rent around that time, from what I've heard. Then it was a bit before you got another job. Now you have another job. And you've had this other job now for 5 months. Right? May, June, July, August, September, 5 months. And you, as a responsible, contributing adult member of society, have not approached your dad to say, okay, Dad, I'm caught up, or even before, Dad, I know I have a job now. I have some bills that piled up while I wasn't working very much. So please, are you okay if I get caught up on this and then I'll start paying rent again? Okay? You, sir, had the responsibility to approach your father to have that discussion. Your responsibility to do that. And you didn't do that. And then when he brought it up many times, right? Probably not most opportune times, right? It was out of frustration and out of argument, which tells the court he was trying to be as patient as he possibly could. And then when you bring up your standard of living requirements that you're not contributing 1 cent to, of course your dad is going to be frustrated and bring up the fact that you're not paying rent and you're making these demands, so to speak. And sir, you really shouldn't. Your dad has every right to have you pay rent.
Absolutely.
However, I'm not going to order any back rent at this point because there wasn't really a firm discussion about it. So, Christopher.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you have any interest in Tice remaining at the home if he is paying rent?
I don't think that him staying in our house is going to help him move a single inch forward, Your Honor.
Okay.
I was angry 2 years ago. I'll admit it. I was the one that spoke out of turn. You were right. We tried to, I was like, you know what? I promised your mom to take care of you. So we made a deal. As soon as that deal, like he paid, I think maybe 3-4 months rent. And then his attitude just got worse and worse to where I was going to go up to the records department. Wyandotte police have been called by either me or my wife at least 7-8 times.
Why is that?
Because he'll come up and start arguing with us and telling, and with his chest out, telling us about how crappy we're living our lives. And this is when, are you kidding? You know, I don't have the greatest temperament either. And
Just
I would respond with rent.
Just a moment. Tice?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, Your Honor. Sorry.
Where do you think that you should be telling your father how to live in the house?
As a son and as a sibling, Your Honor.
As a son and as a sibling?
Yes.
If you do not like how your father is maintaining the home, then move out. Then move out. But you do not get to tell your dad how the house should be managed or how the house should be kept. You don't get to do that at all, even if you are paying $150 a month in rent. Now, is it required for you to have habitability? Okay, right. If you're paying rent, then the house has to be kept habitable. If you're not paying rent, sir, and you're staying in your dad's home, there's nothing that says that you have to have habitability. There's nothing that says that at all. Your dad is not required to provide for you at 21. Now, if a parent chooses to do that for a child at that age, that's great. Not every parent has that ability to do that. The thought process that you can approach your dad at all, even further that you can approach your dad in a disrespectful manner, to challenge him on how he maintains the house, the household, the arguing, whatever it may be, you don't have that right at all. What you do have the right to do is to go find your own place. To go find your own place.
That's what I've been trying to do, Your Honor.
Okay, where have you looked?
Everywhere locally that I can afford. I was part-time until 2 months ago.
Okay,
I had to catch up on my credit bill and debt. So that's where I'm at.
okay, well. Can you give him a tissue, please, Terry? What were you gonna say, Christopher?
You tried several times, Your Honor. When he was 14 years old, we took everything out of his room, his game system, all his toys, said,
Terry, can you give him a tissue?
he had snuck out across
Can you give him a
Wyandotte.
tissue,
At
please?
14 years old, he snuck out in the middle of the night.
Okay,
But-
sir, I don't think it is not productive at all
Okay.
to go backwards
I've just
6-7 years.
We've mentioned like, hey, we don't have to let you use laundry soap, Tice. We don't have to let you we don't have to. We can change the Wi-Fi password, Tice, and that really gets to him. And I'm like, we tried to make him understand that. Do you think all this is just provided by some spirit? It's not, and he just doesn't seem to get it.
So what's that, sir?
Maybe at 14 years old, that stuff would have mattered when they did hold that over my head and threaten to take away stuff, like especially.
Well, right, it's called consequences and punishment and grounding, and absolutely, that and I'll just say, I think kids need more of that, right? Because parents aren't friends of your kids. That's just it. I'm just gonna get on my soapbox for a minute, right? Parents and kids aren't friends until much later, when kids have then had some life experiences and kind of understand a bit more, and they don't need as much parenting and corrective action to be taken. But sir, you're 21 years old. You're 21 years old. Within a month. You and your dad aren't getting along. You haven't paid the rent, right? And I'm not ordering you to pay the rent because there was a specific discussion about that. But your dad is asking you to move out. And I will tell you right now, I'm seeing he's had tears also. It's not easy for him to do. But I will also say, from a parent perspective, sometimes the right decision that you have to make is one of the hardest ones. And that seems to be where he's at right now. It doesn't appear as though he doesn't want a relationship with you at all. It appears as though the two of you can't really reside together. And sometimes that's what happens, right? We've heard of people that, like, oh my gosh, I could never move back home, or,
I give him a ride to work after this. He asked me on the way here while he was yelling at me, oh, can I get you? I said, yeah.
Now, I will also state, sir, that when there are mental health diagnoses, sometimes it's unpredictable, sometimes it's up and down, which that's something that you have to accept and work through. I don't know if there's any family therapy the two of you can do.
I do therapy myself. I'm ADHD myself, just found out at 50.
Well,
I have
perhaps family therapy
I have
may
a
assist you as
therapist
well.
and I take Strattera, and I'm trying to work through this stuff.
I understand, and it's tough to try to work through it while you're still being a parent. But I will also state as well that Tice has some anger. He has a lot of anger, right? He's probably angry at the situation, in a lot of situations. And if you're not in therapy or speaking with a counselor, sir, it's going to be tough for you to continue to move forward in a productive manner with a relationship with your dad. Because I think a lot of kids, they hold their parents up to a high expectation, high standard, right? And I think sometimes it's forgotten that parents are also people, right? So there's that balance. So you're gonna have to move out. Tice, Christopher, how much time are you giving Tice to move out?
I didn't even know it was gonna be put on me, Your Honor. I thought you were gonna make the decision.
I could, but I also think too that for your benefits, I think that perhaps the two of you may want to come to an agreement, if that's possible.
Whenever I get into the first thing I can afford, that accepts me.
I'm sorry?
I said, whenever I can get into the first apartment,
That's too general.
Well, there needs to be some time frame, because that, if there's a time frame that gives you a little bit more
December 1st.
motivation to work assertively and aggressively to find.
I get paid bi-weekly, so I'm expecting 2 checks October, 2 checks November, 2 December. So I would say anything after midpoint of November is good with me. I should definitely be able to afford it.
And I'm sorry, did you say November 1st or
I said
December?
December 1st, you know, 60 days roundabout.
Okay, we'll do December 1st.
That works with me.
I'll put December 1st. And so Tice, what I'm going to caution you on, sir, is when you go home, okay? I'm not saying you have to walk on eggshells with each other, but sometimes what you think doesn't have to come out of your mouth. So if you're frustrated because, you know, I don't know, you don't like the laundry soap, either go buy your own or suck it up and use the laundry soap that was provided for free. Those are the options, but you don't need to vocalize your dissatisfaction with certain things that you're being provided for no cost. Okay, and Christopher, it really probably isn't the best idea to keep hanging that over his head. I think
Hanging, I'm sorry, Your Honor, hanging what part over his head?
that doesn't pay rent or doesn't have the right to question anything.
I saw it as, look, I was already mad at him, and I worked with the judge, we made a decision, and then after he got back from the mental institution, I was like, okay, let me back off. I just want my son, over everything else, I want my son to be all right. But when you're constantly coming up and yelling at us about the way we're doing things or where you're satisfied, it's like you don't see how you have a seat at the table. So that gets brought up, but I can going forward, I won't mention it anymore. But that was the whole thing. It's like, where do you come off?
No,
Like, it'd be one thing if you were helping somebody.
And I completely understand the frustration. And Tice, I think it's pretty clear, right, that your dad's focus was on making and on wanting you to be okay, because you know he didn't file this action a year ago, right? Or before the last time you were here, maybe he would have done that. I don't know, right? So, all right. So I'll make a note on here then by consent that your the date is December 1st. Okay, I'll indicate that it was after hearing the court ordered that Tice will have to relocate. But by consent, it was December 1st is the date. Okay. All right, so if you don't move out by December 1st, then you can apply for an order evicting you. Okay, which I'm sure that neither one of you wants to get to that point.
You're absolutely right.
Okay. Okay, good luck to you.
Thank you.
All right, off the record.
Are you kidding me?
Oh my God.
You have got to be kidding me. What is going on today? This is a joke. This is a joke. Today is an absolute joke. We need an interpreter.
I need an interpreter when I cannot express myself sometimes.
Joke. Oh my God, sir, put that cigarette out. I don't give a crap that you are outside of this. What is wrong with everybody today? You know what, Miss Green? We're going to start bringing people in person. People are going to learn how to act in a courtroom.
Can you hear it? Can you hear it? Ma'am? Ma'am? Can you hear it?
No.
Okay.
I have no patience for that. And trust me, out of the day, I'm sitting up here, I'm the one that needs a drink.